And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this very special segment today on the 5th day of February 2022. Well, yes, it is a great day out there today, looking at 23 degrees and cloudy. So from 35 to 23, it's been a bit of a drop in temperature, and you can feel that if you go for your morning walks and things like that. Once again, hi, it's wonderful to see you all on this weekend. We know that lots happening out there. There are lots of functions and events that are taking place already. Well, tonight is the opening night of Bridge Asia. So looking forward to that and many other things that will be taking place during the weekend. Well, right now, let's get on this weekend segment on the road with our news for today. And of course, we will be looking at the Daily India Report in this segment as well. And don't forget that at 10 a.m. we have Aapka Sehat, a special presentation of Indian Medical Association of Queensland with very special thanks to Cyril Fernandez, Doctor, and would like to invite you all to come join us at 10 a.m. on that segment as well. Well, let's get this show on the road. Well, Australia's flag bearers at the Winter Olympics have been chosen.
The moment has arrived. It's the day of the opening ceremony, and we know who will march into the arena carrying the Australian flag. We managed to speak with Brendan Kerry, the figure skater, and Laura Peel, the aerial skier, right after the moment they were announced. A very proud moment for both of them.
This is actually going to be my first opening ceremony, so really excited. Going to go in with a bang. I've actually spent a bit of time in the Bird's Nest Stadium. We've had World Cup competitions there before, so yeah, I know a bit about that, but just really excited.
I woke up to a text message saying that the chef de mission, Jeff, needed to speak to me urgently. So I very...
What did you think?
I don't know. I was really worried there was a problem with like the event or one of my forms or something because of, all the safety measures we have to take at the moment. So I was a bit like, oh no, what have I forgotten to sign or something? And then, we had a conversation. We were talking about a competition I recently did, and he said, congratulations, you're going to be one of our flag bearers. So I was like, oh, awesome. Thank you. That's very cool.
So all of the politics, all of the diplomatic boycotts, all of the discussions around human rights for the moment will be put to one side as the athletes take centre stage here in Beijing. The opening ceremony this evening, and followed with all of the competition on all of the venues around Beijing and in the mountain regions. It's all ahead at the Beijing Winter Olympics.
So there you go. It's all happening, and congratulations to the flag bearers. It's what an honor and what a task that it would be, to carry Australian flag into the opening ceremony. Well, Prime Minister has been under a lot of fire and a lot of things that have been happening, but he assures the government that the government is working towards a better the solution for the aged care sector.
So there's no simple answers. This is not a pandemic that does not have impacts. And anyone who wants to suggest that, particularly for aged care, doesn't understand this pandemic. And I want to thank everybody for the incredible work they're doing to keep those in our care in the best possible care we can provide in a crisis, in a situation of this nature. Now, you heard me say crisis, and I know for many Australians that's how it feels. I can tell you that's how it feels for us. But what is more important is that we understand this is the function of a lot of pressure on the system. And pressure on a system can produce that result. But what I do know is, despite the terrible challenges we're facing in aged care, that the Australian aged care sector is doing everything they possibly can and is doing better than so many other countries, just like Australia anywhere in the world. I know that's not a comfort to those who have those in aged care, but at the same time, it is the fact that we will continue doing everything we can. Now, I asked the Minister for Defence and the Minister for Health and Aged Care to work together to further progress plans that could see how the Defence Forces can further support.
And of course, right now we will hear from the Education Minister as says no university students have been called off in the first week.
I'm also happy to be able to share with you that our school attendance rates have been really strong this week. So as of yesterday, we had 86% of our students across the state at school, which is fantastic, particularly given that schools in the Western Division don't start until next week. And also many of our kindergarten students are having a staggered start to their time at school. So I expect that data to be even better next week, and that's really exciting and encouraging, because it tells me that parents have confidence in the systems that we have in place in our schools and that they're working well. I'm also happy to confirm that no schools have had to cease operations this week. Again, a marked difference from where we were towards the end of last year, and again reflects the new way that we are living with and managing COVID in our school communities. I do have some preliminary data in terms of the number of students that we've been able to pick up across the systems with rapid antigen testing over the last week. 2,417 students have reported a positive case during that period. At the moment, we don't have the breakdown of primary versus secondary students. That data will come next week through Service New South Wales, and again, we'll be happy to share that with you when it becomes available. And in terms of our staff, I have some data from our government schools. We've had 617 staff test positive across 438 schools. But again, we have been able to manage those staffing absentee rates with the programs that we've had in place. So our schools have been able to use casual staff, they've been able to call on existing staff within their schools to cover those classes. At this stage, we haven't had to use any of our other resources that we had in place, including final year university students or any of our department staff. The vacancies, when staff do have COVID, is being managed really well at a local school level, and again, I think that's very encouraging. It shows that the work that we've done and the systems that we have in place are there to support our students and keep our schools operational, which is obviously priority number one.
And of course, that is the priority number one. Well, the Prime Minister has also promised that, to ban schools from expelling students based on sexuality.
When your reputation's being sullied,
tell me about text messages.
Take the hose into your own hands and wash the blues away.
How's the pressure?
The pressure on the Prime Minister is showing. On aged care today, a belated admission.
You heard me say crisis, and I know for many Australians that's how it feels. I can tell you that's how it feels for us.
Nearly 600 aged care residents have died in the Omicron wave. That's left thousands more locked in their rooms and caused a critical shortage of workers.
It is high time the Australian Defence Force was called in to help with this crisis. Scott Morrison cannot continue to sit on his hands.
The ADF is already helping. Scott Morrison's flagging a bigger role, but
The Defence Forces is not a shadow workforce for the aged care sector.
with Parliament returning, the Prime Minister's political problems appear to be multiplying.
It was an election commitment. It's been a very long overdue. It's been a missing piece in the federal discrimination law provisions and protections.
Time is running out for the Coalition to deal with its contentious religious discrimination bill, and the party room is utterly divided.
Crossing the floor would be a matter of absolute last resort.
Those tensions could be exacerbated by Scott Morrison's vow to bundle that bill with another, protecting students from being expelled on the basis of their sexuality.
Will that happen?
That's my intention, yes.
And will that happen before the election?
Yes.
Children should not be discriminated on the basis of their sexuality. And the Prime Minister said 3 years ago now that that would be fixed within a fortnight.
There's a great deal of frustration within government that it's taken so long to resolve these issues, which can be traced back to the 2017 same-sex marriage debate. But even with the promise of protections for students, there's no guarantee moderates will back this bill, while some on the Conservative side think they've already given too much ground, setting up the potential for a party room showdown in the dying days of the 46th Parliament. Jane Norman, ABC News.
Remember that yesterday I showed you glimpses of the back to school and the education sector, the forum that was organised by Graham Parrott MP, and a lot of community people and politicians took part in that, including the principals of the schools. But right now, the parents are calling on the principal of City Point for action.
A group of parents here at the City Point Christian College are calling for the principal, Brian Mulheron, to step down immediately. It's after parents were sent a contract for them to sign and for the students to sign last week, which denounced homosexuality. It also wanted the students to only be identified by their sex of birth. In that contract, it grouped homosexuality in the same group as bestiality and pedophilia. We heard from the Queensland Education Minister, Grace during the week. She was visibly upset when talking about this. She referred the school to the non-state schools accreditation board during the week. They were due to meet today to see if the school had discriminated against students, homosexual students. We've also, the Queensland Human Rights Commissioner was involved in this as well, and parents actually contacted the Queensland Human Rights Commissioner, who sent a warning to the school as well. The contract has since been withdrawn, although some feel like it's not sincere, the school, in its withdrawal of the contract, and then it's only withdrawing the contract because of external pressure. This group of parents is not only calling for the removal of the principal, it's also calling for the removal of the board which approved this contract in the first place. The school community itself, some of the parents who the ABC has spoken to, feel like it'll be some time before this community heals and comes together once again.
There has been lots of talks on that. People are very, very concerned about the students coming back to school, what the future would be like, what would the form of education look like in coming years. Looking at the academic structure that we grew up with, our parents, and generations before us, the amount, the poor, the pressure that's on students now is great, because they're not going in a normal classroom. The classes are not resumed and not running at a normal rate and not in the normal way. I know there's a lot of remote learning and other things like that that's taking place, but it's all a completely different ball game. So, that importance that was being placed on the physical, actual education, academia, as we know, it might be gone forever. Well, there are many things in life where if things are going right, don't change it. Why would you need to change? But they do happen. One example is the two malls in the valley. Do you remember, about 20 years back, how bustling that would be? Even today, being a Saturday, there'll be so many people. There would be markets there in both the malls, and there were so many people. But all of a sudden, people thought that we have to make it trendy, get rid of the markets, and we'll have some upmarket chic cafes and things like that. There's no one there now. Completely dead. Yesterday I was speaking to someone who used to organize a lot of functions and events in the valley. He engaged me many times to run events there as well. I've been MCs there, and we were talking. We sat down and had a little chat and said, look at this place, what it used to be and what it has become. So some of the things, we always have to embrace technology, we have to embrace change, we have to embrace progress. But there are certain things which have their own essence which always must be left intact. A similar move has happened with Facebook. Everyone knows that Facebook now called Meta and all the other changes that they keep making every day. Lots of things that are happening at the back end. Well, some of the changes has cost them $332 billion. Here's that report.
Fewer people want to be friends with Facebook.
I think Facebook has a Mount Everest-like battle, an uphill climb to get back to growth.
The social media giant is besieged by regulators, whistleblowers, and the greatest threat of all, being desperately uncool. The company recently changed its name to Meta to shift focus from controversy about its role in fueling misinformation and damaging the mental health of users. It's spending billions on pushing a virtual reality world, the metaverse, where we'll work, shop and live. but the market's not buying it. The value of the company slumped by a quarter overnight after releasing a bad financial forecast. It lost $332 billion in value. On paper, co-founder Mark Zuckerberg lost $40 billion. For the first time, the company reported a decline in the number of people using its products daily, as younger people shift to platforms like TikTok that aren't dominated by users their parents' and grandparents' age. Facebook's revenue has been powered by its ability to target advertising. But the social media giant was watching people long after they'd used the app to look at photos of their friends, tracking them across other apps. An Apple update across iPhones killing that off has hurt Facebook's ability to attract advertisers.
But for a company like Facebook that has just been growing for consistently for more than a decade, the idea that maybe they finally plateaued on their user base is certainly a concern for investors.
The future of the internet and business is being driven by large tech companies like Facebook, Apple, Amazon and Google. But they have competing visions and they aren't all going to win. Through our attention, clicks and purchases, we'll decide who we like. Daniel Ziffer, ABC.
And of course, that's what it is like these days. People decide who they like, and you need to remain cool. That's what, and becoming relevant is a challenge. You can start things and, it picks up and it's all good, hunky-dory, but all of a sudden you need to keep working at it. If you don't keep working at it, you become complacent. And if you become uncool, then you are gone. But right now, it's time to go to India with our daily India report. Let's welcome Himanshu.
Welcome to the Daily India report that brings you glimpses of the changing India. In our first story, India withdrew its envoy from the opening and closing ceremonies of the Beijing Winter Olympics. This followed the announcement by China that the PLA commander involved in the Galwan border skirmish with India about 2 years ago will be the torchbearer for the Games. India on February 3rd announced a diplomatic ban on the Beijing Winter Olympics. Kui Fabao, a PLA regiment commander who sustained a head injury while fighting in the Galwan Valley border skirmish with India, has been named by China as torchbearer during the torch relay of the Olympics. India has taken affront to that. Calling the decision regrettable, Ministry of External Affairs spokesperson Arindam Bagchi said that India's top diplomat in Beijing will not attend the opening and closing ceremonies of the event that has been politicized by China. India had lost 20 soldiers in action in the clashes that were the deadliest since the 1962 war in one of the worst skirmishes that took place in June 2020 in the Galwan Valley of Ladakh's eastern sector. Meanwhile, the US Foreign Relations Committee member James Risch deemed China's act as shameful. He tweeted, quote, "It's shameful that Beijing chose a torchbearer for the Olympics 2022 who's part of the military command that attacked India in 2020 and is implementing #genocide against the #Uyghurs. The US will continue to support #Uyghurs freedoms and the sovereignty of India," end quote. The Galwan Valley clash took place on June 15, 2020. Arif Khan is the only Indian athlete for the Winter Olympics. Khan, who is from Jammu and Kashmir territory, will represent India at the slalom event. The Indian government has approved long-term visas for 308 Pakistani nationals seeking refuge in India. India has approved long-term visas for 308 Pakistan nationals seeking refuge in India due to religious persecution. Reportedly, about 7,000 applications of Pakistani nationals are pending with the India Union Home Ministry for grant of India citizenship. While citizenship is granted after a specified number of years of residency under the Citizenship Act 1955, long-term visas are issued for an immediate stay to those with valid passports for a duration of 5 years. In 2019, Parliament passed the Citizenship Amendment Act, paving the way for granting citizenship to members of 6 undocumented minority communities from Afghanistan, Pakistan and Bangladesh who entered India before December 31, 2014. However, the rules for implementing the law have yet to be notified. Home Ministry officials have reportedly said the majority of citizenship requests from foreign nationals are pending and that out of 8,300 applications received by the ministry, about 3,150 members of the minority communities from Afghanistan, Pakistan and Bangladesh have been issued Indian citizenship in the past 4 years. The Indian Space Research Organisation is set to launch Chandrayaan-3 in August 2022. The Indian Space Research Organisation is set to launch Chandrayaan-3 in August 2022. Replying to a question in Parliament, Indian Minister of State, Science and Technology, Dr. Jitendra Singh said that the 8 vehicle missions planned during 2022 between January to December had included 7 spacecraft missions and 4 technology demonstrator missions. However, several ongoing missions were impacted due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Also, a reprioritization of projects has taken place in the backdrop of space sector reforms and newly introduced demand-driven models. The administration of President Joe Biden has made it clear that the US relationship with India stands on its own merit and it will not be affected by the ongoing US tensions with Russia. The administration of President Joe Biden has made it clear that the relationship with India had matured, is a solid strategic and growing partnership bilaterally and globally. As the US and Russia get into a heated exchange over potential Russian threats to Ukraine, Washington is making it clear that ties with India will not be impacted because India has a good and ongoing relationship with Russia. In a press briefing, State Department spokesperson Ned Price said, quote, "We have a relationship with India that stands on its own merits," end quote. He was responding to a question if the US ties with India have been impacted due to the tension with Russia over the Ukraine crisis. This statement comes in the wake of India abstaining from voting on the issue at the United Nations Security Council. The West claims that Russia is trying to start a war with Ukraine as the country has deployed nearly 100,000 troops on the Russia-Ukraine border. Russia has denied any plans to attack Ukraine, saying the troops on the border area are carrying out military exercises. Price said that the US has been in touch with literally dozens of countries around the world, including their Indian partners, on concerns regarding Russia's military buildup and its unprovoked potential aggression against Ukraine. India again voiced a peaceful resolution through constructive political efforts. India and United Kingdom discuss issues related to the United Nations. India and the United Kingdom held consultations in New Delhi on February 3rd over issues related to the United Nations. The Indian Ministry of External Affairs said the two sides briefed each other on their respective priorities in the United Nations Security Council. Discussions focused on issues related to the UNSC agenda, in particular counter-terrorism, peacekeeping, working methods of UNSC sanctions, committees and UNSC reforms, the MEA said. The two sides also exchanged views on current regional and global developments. India conveyed its best wishes to the UK for its upcoming presidency of the UN Security Council in April 2022. Both sides also agreed to work closely together across multilateral platforms and looked forward to deepening cooperation in the framework of the Commonwealth, in particular leading up to the Commonwealth Heads of Government Meeting Summit in June 2022, the MEA added. UK Foreign Secretary said she spoke to the Indian External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar about Russian aggression against Ukraine. Also, they discussed closer defense and security cooperation besides the free trade agreement between the two nations. India starts government-to-government negotiations with Russia for long-term supply of fertilizers. India is holding talks with Russia for long-term supply of fertilizers, hedging against geopolitical instability and high global prices. India is a top importer of urea and other soil nutrients for its huge agriculture sector that employs about 60% of India's workforce and accounts for 15% of the $2.7 trillion economy. Indian Fertilizers Minister Mansukh Mandavia, along with officials from Indian fertilizers companies, will visit Moscow shortly to discuss the deals with Russian Trade Minister Denis Manturov, reports said. This is the first time in 30 years that the Indian government will be involved in multi-year import negotiations for fertilizers. In 1992, India came out with a policy announcing the deregulation of soil nutrients except for urea. India is reportedly trying to lock in 1 million tons a year each of diammonium phosphate and potash and about 800,000 tons a year of a mix of nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. India's Rashtriya Chemicals and Fertilizers Limited, National Fertilizers Limited, Madras Fertilizers Limited, Fertilizers and Chemicals Travancore and India Potash Limited are expected to sign a 3-year deal for DAP, potash and complex fertilizers with Russian companies including Fosagro and Uralkali. Indian companies already have an import deal for 400,000 tons of DAP with Fosagro, and they are expected to lift the entire contracted volume by June, coinciding with the end of the current export quota set by Moscow. Trailer of the much-awaited Bollywood thriller FIR has been released. It shows Abu Bakr, played by Vishnu Vishal, fighting to prove that he is not a terrorist. The film releases on February 11th.
He's a freaking liar and a terrorist. I have no sympathies for a terrorist.
ఈ దేశాన్ని దేశ ప్రజల్ని అంతం చేయాలనుకున్న వాళ్ళందరికీ ఈ రోజు వాడిగా తెట్టు తెలుస్తుంది.
The 2-minute trailer of FIR provides ample glimpses of very interesting aspects of the film, and the film promises to be a nail-biting action thriller with a gripping screenplay. Manjima Mohan, Raisa Wilson and Reba Monica John will be seen in important roles in the film. Vishnu Vishal in the lead role plays Abu Bakr Abdullah, a Muslim youth who becomes the most wanted by the cops, with Gautam Menon playing a cop who is on his hunt.
కేవలం అనుమానంతో ఒకటి జీవితాన్ని నాశనం చేస్తే ఎవడో ఒకడు తిరిగి దెబ్బ కొడతాడన్న భయం పుట్టాలి.
Vishnu shared the trailer on his Instagram handle as he wrote, quote, "I'll freaking show them what I am capable of. #FIR trailer out now. Link in bio. #FIR in theaters from February 11th." End quote. The film also has Gaurav Narayanan and Gautam Vasudev Menon in important roles. Ashwath has composed the music, the Kirumi fame Arul Vincent has choreographed, and Prasanna GK has edited the film.
I'll freaking show them what I'm capable of.
That's all for this bulletin of Daily India Report.
And thank you very much for that, Himanshu. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's about all we have for you in this segment. Don't forget that we are back at 10 with this month's episode of Aapki Sehat, a special presentation of Indian Medical Association of Queensland, where we discuss many community-based medical conditions and topics. So we'll see you back at 10 a.m. But before we go, here's what's happening in Brisbane event-wise.